Hello everyone, this is Firestar Roleplaying coming at you with another Within the Ring of Fire video. This time, we're going to talk about how to craft your catalyst using your character sheet, or as it is called within this Ring of Fire, a character mask. So, let's go ahead and get started on this. The first thing you're going to want to do with the character is make sure they fit the saga they're going into. You want to talk with your FT about what kind of saga it's going to be, make sure your character fits, and come up with a good, compelling character before you even put stats down on the character sheet. That's how it works most of the time anyways. Maybe you look at the stats and think to yourselves, okay, this is how I make this character, or something, whatever works for you. But generally speaking, you want to get an idea, then let the idea tell you what to put on the character sheet, and then maybe as you start looking through it, you're like, maybe I do like artists, then you add that to your backstory, and so on and so forth. But to get started, assuming you have your everything done, you're going to put your character name and your player name down on the character sheet here. So you can download this uh, you can download this mask here from Drive-Thru RPG. Yeah, I had a little bit of a brain fart there of how that was going to work. But yeah, you would put your stuff down, you'd put the name of your saga down. Your schema is essentially just what your character idea is. So like you might put like, I'm a mercenary down here, or something like that. Power hungry mercenary, a repentant knight, any of those type of things. Then you would go on to your status, which is normally going to start at 0. You can technically start it above 0, but let's check with your FT. Your age, height, weight, species, all there. Your gender, birthday, religion, all there. If you're unsure about what birthday to use, I like to just go on to dice roller and find a dice roller that lets me roll 1d77 and then just put a random birthday down. That can even spark imagination there to see what divinity has claimed you on this random dice roll. The theme music, a lot of people tend to put their themes that have few or no lyrics. Check with your FT again to see what is appropriate. Sometimes you can put lyrics, sometimes you can't. All depends on the game you're playing. And for frailty, I saved that for last in this section for good reason, because that it is the most complicated and arguably the most important part of your character. You want to think about a frailty that will let you have fun. A frailty is supposed to be a fun thing. It's not supposed to be a punishment. It's there to stoke your imagination and make your character more realistic and more relatable, more believable. You want to put a frailty down with these thoughts in mind. Make sure that you always, above all else, your frailty cannot impede the other players. You do not want to make a frailty that makes it less fun to play with you. 2, you want to have a frailty that actually hampers you, so that it can create new story opportunities. It needs to hamper you in a way that is fun and enjoyable, rather than something that's just going to be annoying. And 3, you want it so that it can appear frequently, so that you can get that sweet XP from role-playing that frailty out. If you have a cool frailty that will only show up once every 5 sessions, then it's not that cool of a frailty. So just keep all of that in mind as we move on. Next, you have your stats here. Your stats are going to be strength, dexterity, vigor, intelligence, enlightenment, and presence. Now, these stats, you technically have 61, but you cannot go below 5, and you cannot go above 12. In the vast majority of cases, this will change, because that your species granted stat modifications will change how these work. For example, if you have a +2 to strength, that does not mean you get 2 extra points into strength. It means your strength cap is 14 instead of 12. And if you get a -1 to strength, that doesn't mean that you have 1 less point in there. It means your cap is 11 instead of 12. So with that in mind, I usually put all stats at 18, and then just tell players you have 13 points. If you lower something, you get a point back. You can lower it down to a minimum of 5. You can raise it up to a maximum of whatever their maximum is, and that makes it a lot less confusing, especially for new players. Instead of saying you have 65, but the minimum is 5, but you're probably going to put it at 8 anyways, because stats under 8 have a negative unless you have a special character who wants to have a negative. Instead of just going into all that, just tell them it's at 8. You have 13 points. You want more points, you can lower them to get more points. And that I find works way, way better. Now, a lot of stuff like traits are all self-explanatory. It tells you exactly how to apply them. Your health gauge is the one thing that doesn't tell you how to do, which is you add your conditioning plus your VIG score plus your strength of rating. Now, ratings come every point above 8 gives you +1, every point below 8 gives you a -1. For health gauge, I did change it for homebrew. This is completely homebrew and opinionated here, but it's a very small change, so I thought I'd mention it. I made it so that you add your VIG plus your VIG rating to health and completely ignore it for strength. It makes VIG a little bit more useful and strength a little bit less useful. Strength's pretty dominant. And I don't apply the negative. You have negative VIG, you just have your VIG score. And that's just a tiny little thing you can sneak into your games if you want. But the default way, I say again, is VIG score plus strength rating plus ranks in conditioning. That's how you normally calculate it. And on the subject of conditioning, your skill points. You have a number of skill points equals to 4 times your intelligence rating. You can go up to a maximum in 5 at the start. Some species have a lower cap than this, but the vast majority of the time you're going to have a skill cap of 5. That's at 0. You also get 3 fortes plus any species granted fortes. A forte, you can see over there, academics history. It comes down with the character sheet for some reason. I didn't put that there, but that is an example of what a forte looks like. And every single skill has their own fortes. Before you go making your own special fortes, which there's really no reason you can't, it's as simple as saying a forte exists. I would recommend checking every skill's forte list in the skill section, because there are a lot of fortes already there, and the forte you're looking for might be under a skill you didn't necessarily associate it with right off the top of your head. Moving on to piety, passion, your passions, your piety, your love, your hate. Each of these can go up to, once again, a maximum of 5. You get 5 points to start with, and after this, your FT raises and lowers them at will. Like if you had 5 hate, and you were talking about how you hate the divinities, and you hate everybody, and you're vengeful, and you want to take, you're angry, but then you go into a game and you start praying the divinities, and you start doing charitable acts and stuff, you're going to get love and piety up, and your hate's going to go down, which is okay. That's good character development. In some cases, your passions will change, but your FT will be the one who adjusts them up and down for you. That will cover the vast majority of the basics. Moving on to something a little bit more complicated. We have your opulence, advantages, and perfections. Oh, also your fortes for weapons. I saw a little bit of confusion with this before, so I'd clarify it. Like if you want to take a forte in a longsword, you would go to swords and then put longsword there. If you want a forte in a hunting bow, you would put bows and then hunting bow as your forte. That's how fortes for weapons work. For opulence, you start with 1, and unless you have an imperfection or an advantage, and then that determines what gear you can start with, how much money you have. It doesn't have to be coins, it can be coinage, but most of the world in Vega Theo deals in trade goods. Once again, ask your FT where the game's set, what kind of opulence is going to be available to your character. For advantages, you start with 5 advantage points. These advantage points can be spent on species-specific advantages that you can find at the end of the core book's advantages, or they can be spent on normal advantages. Most advantages are fine. Your FT will probably let you know if there's any advantages that are banned or added. Like, for example, I have added probably about 40 pages of new advantages I've made. If you're interested, the link is in the description. You can pester your FT about allowing these. They've all been reviewed by a group of players who have multiple years of experience in the game, and I'm heavily based them on advantages that already existed, so most of them should be balanced. You can go check that out if you want, but standardly you have 5 advantages. Now you can also take up to 5 imperfection points. If you take these 5 imperfection points, you get 1 advantage point for each imperfection point you take, giving you a maximum of 10 advantage points at the start of the game. You also get 1 advantage point at every tick. So like as I said before, you go 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. That's how you do your statuses until 0.5 would turn you to status 1. Each of those little ticks, you get 1 advantage points up to 5 advantage points of status. Those ticks also give you your skill points. You will get your intelligence score per status in skills, and they will also be drip fed to you along the way. Your experience is just where you put your experience. Your psychological aspects, this can be any notes about your character that you want to do, your possessions, any notable possessions. You don't have to keep track of every single thing you have. You can just put down anything you think is noteworthy. If you have like a really cool ring or like a special family heirloom or something like that, you can put that in possessions. Notes, any extra notes you have about your character, I suggest making an entirely different folder for or a piece of paper or notepad or whatever you need to do to keep notes for the saga, because this will probably not even cover the first session if you're taking detailed notes. So these notes are more for things that just didn't fit the miscellaneous. And then obviously your combat stats are down here. It tells you a little bit about, at the very bottom, like a little cheat sheet that tells you what each of the things does and helps remind you if you have forgotten. And you can put your weapon on the left side, any notes about your weapon right here in this little middle column. And then your bonus to attack is over here, your bonus to damage, your bonus to armor surpass, and what your weapon boosts on. And I explained all that, what boosts are and how you calculate your bonuses and everything in the other video that I uploaded probably yesterday when you're seeing this one. And that about covers all the character sheet, or the character mask, works in Within the Ring of Fire. If you have any more questions or want me to go into more depth about anything in particular, please let me know and I will be happy to do so. But until next time, this has been Firestar Roleplaying signing off. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Goodbye, God bless, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.